So this is an exciting summer. The General Convention 80 is approaching. Of course, we were supposed to gather in Baltimore last summer, so we'll be gathering there in really just a few short weeks. So I have the honor of co-chairing the Bishops' Committee on Government and Structure. And of course, if you know how General Convention works, that means that I have a cognate committee, a parallel committee within the House of Deputies. And so our committees meet together. So it's the House of Deputies and the House of Bishops Legislative Committee on Government and Structure. Doesn't that sound exciting? We are looking at all kinds of things about how we might change constitutions and canons to allow dioceses to merge, or two dioceses might turn into one diocese, or as has just happened in Texas, a former diocese is being merged into the Diocese of Texas. You'll read about that someplace else. So it's all kinds of things. It's important things. It's things that help keep the church running well, more efficiently and more effectively. But let me highlight a couple of things. Now, one thing that might sound kind of simple, but it's not necessarily that simple, is that the committee structure I'm a part of is going to put forward a resolution on where should General Convention be in 2027. That'll be General Convention 82. Now, there's a lot of different things that are in play when you choose the site of a General Convention. And of course, one of the things we always want to look at is where will the hospitality extended by that community feel welcoming and accepting and in sync with the Episcopal Church. And so we'll take a look at all of those kinds of things, but I have to say I have a little bit of partialness because Charlotte is on the list for 2027. So now I have no influence on the decision. Our committee will just put out some suggestions that a future committee will make the actual decision. So is anything simple about that? No. But could there be some exciting ramifications for the Diocese of North Carolina? Yes. So that's a wait and see. And we won't know until after General Convention. We're just approving a list at this point. Another thing, though, that kind of comes close to home in our diocese is, as you know, or I hope you know, our own bishop, Sam Rodman, was asked by the presiding bishop to co-chair a task force, a commission on truth, reckoning, and healing around the history and impacts of racism and slavery in our country and the lingering legacy of that in some of the ways that we are currently still living our life. A piece of what that task force recommended has come to the Legislative Committee on Government and Structure. And it originally used the phrase directing Episcopal Church and diocese to do a forensic audit. We're actually changing that language. We're recommending a change on that language, but what that's trying to point to is the idea of looking at how was wealth stolen in a way from enslaved people, but captured in a way by the history of some of our churches and really by the history of the whole diocese. So it's taking a look at the origins and the process of accumulating wealth in buildings and endowments, and thinking about how has wealth maybe been gathered in inequitable ways. Do the history, do the research, do the work, and then based on that, how might we think about that today going forward in actions of reckoning and healing. So that will be exciting work, and it coincides very effectively with our own diocesan mission strategies on racial reconciliation. So that is another issue that my committee will take up. Something that could not be more boring, but perhaps could not be more important to the efficacy and impact of the Episcopal Church, is that we're going to look at a different way to do the budget of the Episcopal Church. As you may know, I'm on Executive Council. Alice Freeman, one of our deputies, is also on the Executive Council of the Episcopal Church. I have the, shall I call it an honor, of sitting on the Finance Committee. I'm very excited about the resolution on this new budget process. I'm not going to bore you with those details, but it has been so well developed and vetted and tested and discussed and debated that I actually, while we will have a floor discussion and presentation about it, it has buy-in from all around the church. I'm not expecting it to be controversial in any way. In fact, huge numbers of people, when this passes, if this passes, will breathe a sigh of relief that we're doing a better job of informing, involving, but also streamlining the budget process for our multi-million dollar church in all of its various locations and manifestations. Those are just some of the things. We have about 20 resolutions we're looking at. I have a great committee working on this. My co-chair for the Legislative Committee of Bishops on Government and Structure is our own Michael Hunn, and so it's been great to connect with Michael. And we have great bishops from around the church, and from including the Bishop of Columbia, Bishop Francisco Duque, and it's been fun to make sure that we do all of our work in English and in Spanish. It's been great to have his participation. And I'm also very grateful to be serving with, as my counterpart on the House of Deputies, the Reverend Louisa McKelliston from Chicago. She is fabulous. In fact, she's really the one who understands how all this works. And I just sit there nodding most of the time. So it's a pleasure to represent you all at General Convention. Hope you'll tune in. And if you have any other questions about government and structure, give me a call.